evening, and we'll call this regularly scheduled meeting of Bridgewater Town Council to order. The agenda has been circulated. We do have an addition, which is 10.3, reserve transfers for 2019-2020, which is document 20-171. That is in your agenda package, and apparently it's the one that says addition next to it. So can I have a motion to approve the amended agenda, please?
So moved.
Councillor Thorburn, seconded by Councillor Graves. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. And we'll go right down to our first order of business, which is exciting. Normally this would take place in Halifax with the Premier and the Lieutenant Governor awarding what is our Provincial Volunteer Award. And so I'm going to turn this over to our Deputy Mayor to read about Mr. John R. McDonald, who is our 2020 representative. Well, okay. John, if you want to come down and join me with our masks on.
John R. McDonald, our 2020 Representative Volunteer Award, Town of Bridgewater. John enthusiastically volunteered in student extracurriculars, most notably coaching, debating, and the Reach for the Top program for many years while he was a staff member at Parkview Education Center. He's been an effective leader in his church as president of the Bridgewater Interchurch Council, and especially when serving on the Bridgewater Area Refugee Committee that he chaired. He has done much during 25 years in promoting the spirit of cooperation and goodwill that is so evident among the churches of Bridgewater. John works hard to make a real difference in people's lives, and his award is their success. His work with Special Olympics, Habitat for Humanity, the Salvation Army, Knights of Columbus, and the Royal Canadian Legion reflect that helping attitude. Congratulations, John.
John, I wish you could shake hands.
Yes, thank you. If John was giving a speech now, you would recognize his voice instantly if you had attended any of our Remembrance Day services. His voice is unforgettable. So close. Are there any announcements from members of Town Council? Anything upcoming? No, it's still kind of quiet days with COVID going on. I will say that there is, for the upcoming election, there's a candidates forum that will be held virtually. So I believe it's being held on Wednesday, but will be uploaded to the library's social media feeds Thursday or Friday. So once that's public, then that'll be shared on the town's Facebook page and various other social media feeds. So we look forward to that. We'll go right down to delegations. So we have, I believe, a member from the Bridgewater Tennis Club here. Yep. So, Jonathan, yep. Is it? Do you want to come on down to the podium and make your presentation to council?
Basically, just here today to request for the release of the funds that I guess we have from the beginning of the year. I think it's $20,000 for the repairs to the surfaces over at the tennis courts. The repairs are actually scheduled to start this week. We've gotten $6,000 from Modal, $5,000 from the provincial government, and basically the rest of the money that we've secured kind of on our own through either donations or membership fees or things like that. So repairs, right now we can basically only afford to fix courts 1 and 2, which is kind of like the 2 that are together, and then the third one down on the far that's kind of fenced in by itself. We can't quite afford to fix that yet. But the cost to do courts 1 and 2 is $35,000 plus tax, which basically pretty much have almost the right amount with the $20,000 from the town. That basically puts us right bang on to be able to have that done this year.
Okay, are there any questions from members of Town Council before we discuss that? Deputy Mayor.
Jonathan, I heard through the pickleball folks that they had requested usage of the courts, and I thought that would be a great sort of synergy and perhaps a revenue source for the tennis club. Why was that not allowed, I guess?
We tried it once. As you can see, the third court basically had pickle lines painted on it. It was okay for, I think, 1 year, and then it faded off into not being used, period. That was before I became vice president of the club, so I don't really know all the ins and outs of it, but basically, even if you go down and you look at the third court that's down there, it's almost the pickleball lines that ruin the surface, basically. Basically everywhere, I don't know if that was the job that was done or whatnot, but basically everywhere that the lines are, it's just eating the top surface off, and that's why the third court's in probably the worst shape. The whole surface has to be redone all over. It's not just simple. The other ones you can basically get away with, cleaning off and then fixing the divots and chiseling out some of it, but I don't know. It's one of those things that I think this year, despite everything with COVID and everything, it's been one of our largest years for members.
Yeah.
The courts, they're full, like multiple nights a week, with the fact of, to what the limits allow, but
Right.
I don't know if we could really fit it in or if it would make sense. Maybe it's something that would make sense. Maybe we can look at when we actually go around to do the third court. Maybe it's something we could include again, but I think with that third court, the plan is to make it more of a multi kind of purpose, like what we presented in the beginning. Maybe look at putting some basketball standards and stuff. We are in talks with somebody that hopefully is going to put forth some money towards it to help with the fixing. There's just a lot of paperwork involved. It's just not something that's going to happen this year. But, that's kind of where we stand on that. I mean, it's something we could look at, I guess, maybe when the time comes, but as it stands right now, we're just trying to get the two that gets used the most all fixed up and ready to go. So.
Other questions, Councilor Bergier?
Yes, just the future of the club, I guess I'm looking at for sustainability for the courts themselves in particular. So do you foresee with these repairs that will get you through for?
Yeah, I think so, until something, more prestigious comes along. I think kind of like what we, discussed way back, maybe when GAP, comes to fruition, we'll do something, over there that's brand new. But I think just having the courts repaired, I think the last time they were done was probably about 10 years ago now. So, it's kind of the shape that they get in. Is it going to happen again? Yeah. It's just inevitable. It's just the area that's there right now. So, but again, I think even just having the courts fixed up, like we replaced the deck here not that long ago, and we had a lot of comments of just how much different the clubhouse looks. We didn't have the deck replaced.
Okay.
Did you paint the clubhouse? No, we just replaced the deck. It just looks completely different. So I think once we get the other courts all nice and geared up and we get some of that other little aesthetic stuff done, we'll be good to go for another 5, 6, 7, 8, however long we can let it last. So.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Thorburn?
Just a couple of things. I do know that I've been down there a few times, and the courts seem to be quite busy. And I play pickleball down in Liverpool on their tennis courts. But it's not really conducive to the game either, because we're using the tennis net, and we have the lines down there with the other lines. It's not a great game without having your own pickleball courts where you can have your lines and whatnot. But it's nice to see that you got some private donations for that third court.
Yeah.
And it's nice to see that you've increased your membership, and actually the charge that you're charging members has increased somewhat. So
A little bit,
yeah. So you're trying to do what you can to help.
Councilor Graves?
In regard to your membership, do you know how many people live in Mobile as opposed to the town of Bridgewater and the town of Home Bay?
I'm sure we probably have that number somewhere. I don't know that specifically. If I was going to guess, maybe a 60-40 split, with 60% maybe being in the town, 40% outside. How many of those? It's a little skewed because sometimes you get like a family membership, so that includes 2 adults, 2 children. Well, if you're just putting your 2 children in, it's technically cheaper to get a family. So, those 2 adults do count towards the numbers, but do they actually play? Sometimes it's hard to gauge on how many people are actually using it, as adults. But I think most of the membership, is within town. But yeah, it might be a 60-40 split. It may even be 50-50. I wouldn't know exactly, but there is a good hunk of it that does come from play.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Jonathan.
Okay.
With the indulgence of council, perhaps can move this item to now. So Jonathan, if he wants to stick around and we can have the debate now, if that's okay with council. We talked briefly before the meeting just about this is something we have to think about going forward, about when we have large funding requests that come during an election period, to make sure that, we're always open and transparent with our discussions, but just making sure that the public is aware that this was a budgeted item that came through the budget process. It was in the budget. It came before council a number of months ago, where council asked for more information, and so it has come back now. So I just want to make that kind of that reminder for the public that this isn't something that has just come now, because I know, again, we are in the middle of a municipal election period, so I just wanted to put that out there. So if we're going to deal with this item now, what is the will of council? We can get a motion on the floor, and then we can discuss it and debate it. Councillor Thorburn?
I would put a motion on the floor that we would give the $20,000 to the Bridgewater Tennis Club so they can continue to work on courts 2 and 3.
Okay, we have a seconded by Councillor Fashear. Okay, further discussion? I know this is, we've kind of debated this a few times.
Well,
but-
I can speak on it a little, just not much, but
Sure.
they did show commitment where they put their time into it. They volunteered a lot of hours and got the deck done. And time is critical, and to defer this to another time, I don't think is fair to them. So I will be supporting the motion that I made.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion?
Question?
Questions being called. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Oh, thank you very much. All right, we have the minutes of the September 14th, 2020 meeting. Any errors, omissions, or deletions from there? Hearing none, we will deem the minutes as approved. Just going to quickly go through the correspondence for information items, and then I'm going to ask that we move the anti-racism task force item up, because we do have representatives here excitedly waiting for the outcome of that. So in correspondence for information, we have Blue Nose, or sorry, it's not even Blue Nose Coast anymore, it's Coastal Action board representation, and so they're just letting us know that they don't require a municipal board member anymore. So that's there for your information. And then we have a letter, thanks for the support, from Catherine Wright. So you'll remember a number of years ago, we expressed our disappointment that Catherine and David Wright were being deported. They'd been citizens of Lunenburg County for and incredible volunteers down in Vogler's Cove area for many, many years, and they were being deported. Sadly, David passed away without ever having getting to know the outcome of this. So Catherine has just expressed her support to not just town council, but really our community for stepping up and expressing our disappointment, asking at the time the federal minister to overturn his ruling, which unfortunately he didn't do, and David passed away. So that is there for your approval, and our hearts go out to Catherine that she can't celebrate this with David. So moving our last item up to become our next item, that is the what I hope will end up being the official formation of the Bridgewater Anti-Racism Task Force to become a committee of council. Now this is, I said I wasn't going to cry, but council knows it might happen. In the gallery, as limited as we can have it because of COVID restrictions, we do have Patricia Watson and Jennifer Everest, which are two of our unofficial committee members, because we haven't been in an official committee until now. And Jennifer, along with Francis Kangata, worked on creating this terms of reference. And you'll remember Jennifer as she was our opening speaker at our Take a Knee event that we had. Was that May? It seems so long ago. In May, I think it was May. Powerful speakers we had. And from that came the commitment, I'm going to say, not just around this table, but as a community to do something. So it wasn't just going to be words, it had to be action. For there to be action, there has to be a committee. And for that committee to make sense, it cannot be a committee just sitting around this table. One just has to look around the table and realize for an anti-racism task force, we don't really meet the vital components that are needed to have those life experiences that are going to lead to change in the community. And so I'm thrilled that Patricia and Jennifer are here. I know that the other members, Lauren and Alden and Francis, are watching. And we've met a number of times over the last number of months to get to this point, and what I believe is actually a historic day, not just for Bridgewater, not just for Lunenburg County, but for the province of Nova Scotia. I don't know another municipal council that has officially set in motion an anti-racism task force that that is so closely engaged with council, right? If this is a committee of council, then we are, I don't want to say forced to work together because it makes it sound negative, but you know what I mean? We're obligated to work together to make some changes, which I think is incredibly powerful. And as a mayor, as a citizen of this town, as a parent, this is big. There's two motions in there. I want to talk about the second one, which is I just need to add two words. So in section 36 advocacy, section D, it says with the support of council, advocate as deems appropriate. We're adding advocate as the task force deems appropriate, but it does have that with the support of council. So it's striking that balance of the committee working with council on items that the task force deems appropriate. So it's those checks and balances for both of us are in place. This is a committee of council, so it will have to follow the MGA and the other guidelines that are there, but this is also uncharted territory for us. So we tried to find that balance in there. So there's the first motion there, but I want to open up to the floor for any discussion from council. Anything anyone wishes to add? Councilor
I
McDonald?
just want to say thank you to the people who have created this task force and who sit on it now and who will sit on it in the future for helping to create a better community. Thank you.
Is someone prepared to make a motion? Councilor Boucher?
Yes, Your Worship. I move that Town Council for the Town of Bridgewater establish the Bridgewater Anti-Racism Task Force as a committee of the town and approve the terms of reference as presented in document 20-169.
Oh, sorry, Sam just emailed me to say it's usually we have to read one and then the other. It's
Oh.
one or the other. So if we could, if council's willing to read the second one.
Okay, sorry.
You can just start
Yeah.
start from scratch. Sorry, that's my bad.
Okay. That Council for the Town of Bridgewater establish the Bridgewater Anti-Black Racism Task Force as a committee of the town and approve the terms of reference as presented in document 20-169 with section 36, item D, edited to read, do I need this in?
Yes, please.
Okay. Edited to read D, with the support of council, advocate as the task force deems appropriate.
Thank you. Can we just make one change there? It just should be anti-racism task force, not anti-black racism task force, because there will be an indigenous component as well. So can we just make that amendment if the mover's okay with that?
Yes,
that was
actually a typo.
Okay, perfect. If the mover's okay. Can I have a seconder, please? Everybody's seconding it. How can we put that
Well,
down?
can't put everybody down, but if we all in
I think
favor.
Deputy Mayor Tanner was first. Further discussion?
Question?
Question being called. All those in favor?
No, we can go.
Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you again to Patricia, Jennifer, and Francis, and Alden and Lauren. Now the work begins, but this is a big day. Thank you.
Thank you.
There is a couple of editing items on that document. Item 6 should be changed. Membership. Membership is limited to those who live, work, or play in the town of Bridgewater, of the town of Bridgewater.
Is it just like a couple housekeeping items? you mean?
yeah.
Okay, we can go through that.
No worries.
Okay, we're down to reports and recommendations. Recommendation of the Bridgewater Board of Police Commissioners to the reappointment of Commissioner Walker to continue on his term. Someone prepared to make that motion? Councilor McDonald?
Oh, sorry, I lost my motions.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Tanner, do you want? Yes. You're next?
I move that town council for the town of Bridgewater endorse the recommendation of the Bridgewater Board of Police Commissioners and reappoint David Walker to the commission for a second term, October 2020 through to October 2023.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Thorburn. Further discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Our next item is 10.2, land acquisition for public street purposes. And so probably maybe I'll just turn that over to the CIO just to give a quick synopsis of that one.
This matter pertains to land that the town will be acquiring in order to facilitate the intersection improvements that we're doing throughout our business park that are necessary to accommodate the construction of the interchange. So traffic will be rerouted through various intersections within the business park while the construction of the interchange is underway. So that requires that we widen some roads, there's lane additions, intersections are straightened out, and that results in us needing to acquire land that we don't own. So the motions here tonight are to help facilitate that, because the timing of the construction is such that they hope to have a good majority of it done before the end of the calendar year. And that means that we're going to be buying land quite frequently. There's about 9 parcels that we have to acquire, and the logistics of that and coming back to council would result in a number of meetings that just aren't scheduled over the next month. It's proposed that we set a budget, and that budget staff would have the ability, myself, to work within that budget for land acquisition. The acquisition of the land would be fair and recognize the cost that we would incur and landowners to acquire that land, because the intent would be is that we would buy that without impact financially to the landowners. There's also a recommendation that once we acquire the lands, that we deem them to be part of the public street right away, so that they become part of the road. And there's a recommendation pertaining to land that we do have an agreement on a purchase price already that I thought it would be good just to kind of get that one dealt with, since we have an agreement of the seller. So that is for the land that is owned by the Lunenburg County Multipurpose Center Corp. The parcel is on York Street, and it's a narrow strip that runs kind of from the skate park up to North Park, and that has a value of $8,800. So there's a recommendation there that council authorize the agreement of purchase and sale for that, and then authorize the CAO to work within the established budget for the negotiation and acquisition of the remaining parcels that are required.
Can I ask a weird question?
Mm-hmm.
That York Street and North Park, is that going to be realigned in a way that we're not making a sweeping left turn onto York?
That's, yeah, the design shows that intersection is going to be, yes, improved.
I hope so.
You had me at hello. Okay, that's great. Any discussion on that? Any questions from council?
Do you want the motion?
The first of many on that one. Yes,
Yeah,
please, Councilor
once we get her
Thorburn.
done.
Yep.
Okay. The first one is I would move that council for the town of Bridgewater approve a total budget of $120,000 to facilitate parcel acquisitions for public street purposes.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder, please? Councilor Vergier. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Those opposed? Thank you. Motion is carried. Next one, please.
That council for the town of Bridgewater authorize the purchase and execution of the agreement to purchase and sale with Lunenburg County Multipurpose Center Corporation for parcel L, being a portion of 500 York Street, Bridgewater Skate Park, for the purchase price of $8,000, and with the standard agreements to be prepared by legal counsel.
Thank you. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Tanner. Any discussion?
8,800.
8,800. Yes.
8,800, yeah.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Question.
Question being called. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Skate park was nice and busy this weekend, but from what I saw, when people got off the ramps, they then kind of stepped to the side so that people weren't congregating in crowds. So, but with the weather, it was just, here we are, getting into October, and kids are outside, and all ages. It's amazing. All right, sorry. Just next one, please.
And that council for the town of Bridgewater accept the deed for parcel L and declare the subject parcel as a public street condition to the execution of the agreement of purchase and sale.
Thank you. Seconded by Councilor Frazier. Any discussion? Question being called. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. You're on a roll. Do you want to keep going?
The council for the town of Bridgewater authorized the chief administrative officer to negotiate and acquire 9 additional parcels and execute each subsequent agreement of purchase and sale in the standard form prepared by legal counsel in conjunction with the purchase prices deemed to be market value as submitted by a qualified professional appraiser and accepted by the vendor.
Thank you. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Tanner. I'm just swiveling left and right here. Any discussion on that?
Question.
Question being called. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Last one, Councilor Thorburn.
That council for the town of Bridgewater accept the 9 additional deeds, specifically parcels HL, parcel P, parcel B, parcel NS, parcel SS, parcel M1, parcel M2, parcel MAC, and parcel E, and declare each as a public street, conditional on the execution of the associate agreements of purchase and sale.
Thank you. Seconded by Councilor Frazier. Discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. It does not get any more exciting than this. I know that Councilor Thorburn, he misses when we do those long proclamations, because he loves those
I love
long,
them.
he loves those long motions. So, a package of whatever that was, a half dozen motions, that's just,
I just love numbers.
He's
The
in his
bigger the number,
element.
the better, more like it.
All right, thank you for that. We're down to 10.3, which is our additional item, which is the reserve transfers for 2019-2020. I don't know if there's are you going to give a quick explanation, or is our Director of Finance going to come down and?
Kim can do that because it really rolls into our financial statements.
Right,
It's in
that's
there.
right, yeah.
The result of them.
Can join us at the podium and regale us in all the excitement that is the reserve transfers for 2019-2020.
Jerome Fault, you asked if it get more exciting than that last item.
You just did.
So there are just a few things that are outstanding that were actioned during the year that just need to be transferred to reserves, things like donations and things like that. So you'll see in the report that was submitted, I'm just asking for approval of those. So donations received for the LCLC in the amount of $11,750. We ask that it be transferred to the reserve for future debt repayment on the LCLC debt. And for donations for the skate park in the amount of $3,264, we ask that that be transferred to reserve to be used for capital funding for the skate park. And those two items are impossible to budget. We have to wait and see what the donations were for the year and ask for that approval at the end. In addition, there was, in the 2019-2020 budget, there was purchase of bunker gear that was budgeted, but it didn't arrive before year end. And so we've asked that that be transferred to reserve so that it can come back in the following year to fund that bunker gear, to basically extend that budget item into the next year. And for the Canada Day budget that was carried forward into 2019-20 from a prior year for fireworks, we're asking that because Canada Day events, for the most part, had to be postponed, so we're just asking again for that to be transferred to the reserve to be carried forward into future years. And the last one would be the operating fund surplus for the year of $1,363,327. We ask that that be approved to be transferred to the operating reserve as required by the province.
Okay.
Any questions on those?
Questions? Is someone prepared to move the transfers to reserve as outlined by the Director of Finance? Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councilor Frazier. Any further discussion?
Question.
Question being called. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Just checking to make sure that one was okay. And then we'll go to recommendations of the Audit Committee, financial statements for year-end March 31st, 2020. I don't know if there's another preamble from our director on the next one. You sat down too soon.
I stayed close to space. So in front of you, you will have the financial statements. So just a couple of highlights. As mentioned in the previous motion, our general operating fund had a surplus of just over $1.3 million. So that is a highlight, and that's on page B2 of our financial statements. The main part of the financial statements that the audit opinion is on is our consolidated statement of financial position and consolidated statement of financial activities. So just asking everyone to keep in mind that's all operations of the town, as well as any entities that we control or have significant influence in, such as the Public Service Commission and the LCLC. And those results are all consolidated into this balance sheet and income statement. So keeping in mind those totals are included. So when we look at the annual surplus on a consolidated basis of $3.6 million, keeping in mind that that is for all funds, including LCLC, including PSC.
Okay, any questions from council? So just so the public's aware, we had a audit committee meeting, which is council and a member of the public who sits on that committee. And so we reviewed this about an hour ago and sat through that and got all this information. So I know it sometimes seems really quick, like how are you making that decision that quick? Well, we've had these statements, and then we had a meeting to discuss them as well. I don't know if there's any questions.
Looking for a motion?
I am, yes, thank you.
That council for the town of Bridgewater endorse the recommendations of the audit committee and approve the audited financial statements for the town of Bridgewater, the town of Bridgewater Trust Fund, and the non-consolidated financial statements for the Smart Cities Challenge project for the year ended March 31st, 2020, as reviewed by the audit committee.
Seconded by Councilor McDonald. Further discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you. Our next item, 10.5, is a contribution agreement onside MIT REAP. And so some people are like, MIT REAP, what is that? So MIT is MIT, as in the university. This is, and the REAP is the Regional Entrepreneurial Acceleration Program. So people will recall about 5-6 years ago, we had the IVNY report. That was an incredible document, incredibly powerful document for the future of our province. It was a 10-year timeline. That was 5 or 6 years ago. We are more than halfway through that 10-year timeline. Bridgewater, along with Yarmouth, Wolfville, Port Hawkesbury, have been selected as representatives, as hubs, as stakeholders, I guess, if you will, to go through and basically address, deal with, work with the last 5 years of the IVNY report, which I think is pretty cool. And I think it speaks to this community. And it's not just Bridgewater. We're the center in a group that is going to be involved in this. Part of this is going through this entrepreneurial acceleration program put on by MIT. So the team consists of 10 individuals. I will be on the team. We will have a staff person on the team, and then we've gone out and looked for various stakeholders in various different types of businesses, both in town and out of town. So this isn't a town of Bridgewater thing. Actually, more of the participants are business owners or business employees from outside of Bridgewater. So the input is from various sectors and various geographic locations within Lunenburg County. So what is in front of you is we have to pay MIT our portion, which is $30,000, but each participant is going to be paying their share, which is $3,000. So at the end, our cost is $6,000, not the $30,000, but we have one person has to pay the bill originally, and then they'll pay back when they get invoiced. So as the motion states, we will receive reimbursement for all but the 2 town representatives on this committee.
And just to be very clear, who are the 2 town representatives?
So right now it is myself, and then I think, it might change based on,
Based on the fact that it looks like it's going to start in January, we
Right.
hope to have the economic development officer in place by then,
Okay.
and that would
Yeah,
be the
so
staff
just-
rep, yeah.
yeah. Okay. Unless you have another suggestion.
No, I was just worried about a conflict of interest on a number of people, but since they're paying it back.
Yes,
Yeah.
Oh.
yeah.
So it's just.
Yeah, so all but the two
Yeah,
town
okay.
positions will be,
Yes.
will be
All right.
reimbursed,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And they've all agreed to that.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah. And I will say that this is, like, the province is paying, the province and the federal government each put in $250,000 towards this. So it's not just the four, actually, there's 5 groups going through the REAP. There's not just 5 groups putting in $30,000. The program costs a heck of a lot more. And just before we move on to the actual motion, the last group to go through the MIT REAP was John Risley and a number in that group, and they came up with the idea of the Ocean Supercluster. So the Ocean Supercluster now has paid off billions of dollars in dividends to this province, whether it's how we get our lobster to market or how we deal with energy, sea traffic, things like that. So the ideas that come out of this really will benefit not just the town, not just Lunenburg County or the South Shore, but the idea is that there's going to be some incredible things that come out of this that pay dividends for a long, long time. So I know there was a lot in there, but all that to say, it's only going to cost the town $6,000. Is someone prepared to make a motion? Councilor Thorburn.
I would move that council of the town of Bridgewater authorize the execution of the contribution agreement with the Organization of Nova Scotia Innovation Driven Entrepreneurship on behalf of Bridgewater Regional Team, 10 participants in total, and for a payment of associate cost of $30,000 with reimbursement from parties external to the town of Bridgewater.
Thank you. Seconded by Councilor Graves. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Next item is RFP 2020-09 Communications Tower. And someone will say, didn't you deal with the communications tower at the last meeting and say we're not going to do it? This is a same but different tower. So I see Mr. Hopkins is here, and he can maybe enlighten the public and council.
I'll try. It is the same tower, but
But different, but the same. Yeah.
Back at it again. Staff issued RFP 2020-09 Communications Tower on July 15th, 2020. The RFP was advertised on the town's website and the provincial procurement website for a period of 3 weeks. The Finance Department issued 19 RFPs. We received 4 submissions on closing. Staff reviewed and scored all the proposals, including the provisional items as per the RFP document. Budget for this RFP was $295,000. Staff recommend that RFP 2020-09 be awarded to Tourist Contractors, Inc. for the supply and installation of a 110-foot galvanized self-supporting tower, which was provisional item number 3, and also the removal of the existing tower, which was provisional item number 6, for a total price of $98,325. That's full HST. $89,164.53 net HST. Now, that's not the total cost of the job, so we have still other work to do, so that's only part of the job, so we're not 200,000 under budget, we're just, it looks good now, so we still have to build a road. We are contracting the base for the tower ourselves, the electrical work, fencing, that kind of stuff, so, but still, we're in good shape.
You knew that question was coming. Questions from council? Councilor Thorburn.
Just a couple. It seems like the initial towers from some companies was 4 times this. It was $200,000, and the removal like $15,000 or $30,000, and we're getting it done for, according to this, $1,500.
Yeah.
So why discrepancy? It seems like the numbers are not even close. Is there any reason for it, or just?
And the last time we went to tender, I think our price was $280,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not sure. More companies bid this time, so
That's good for
It's good, we were
Bridgewater.
worried.
Yeah.
So that's why we had some provisional items in
Yeah.
there. We originally put a 90-foot tower in the main document, and then
Yeah.
we had provisional items for the taller tower, so that's what we went with to ensure we have good coverage throughout Bridgewater and local areas.
I think Councillor Graves had a question, then we'll go back to Councillor Thorpe.
Where's the tower going to be located?
On PSC property on top of Aberdeen Road.
Top of Aberdeen?
Yes, it's going to be on PSC land.
So isn't that where the tower is now? That it's
No,
replacing?
it's on
It-
private land.
But it's right
It's,
near
yeah,
that,
it's
yeah.
only
Same area.
200 feet away or something like that.
Mm. Wasn't there some issues up there?
There will not be cellular component to this tower. That was the concern before, the cellular component. Yeah, so there will be no cell, this will not be a
We've
cell
been
tower.
working with the property owners.
Good to hear.
Yeah. Councillor Thorburn?
So we do know that this is coming in at $89,000, but you might have said, and maybe I wasn't paying attention. Do we know now, based on the information that you have, what the total package is going to be? We know in our capital budget was $295,000. We know this portion's costing X number of dollars. Do we know what the total project's going to cost?
We don't have that exact number. We're hoping to do it mostly in-house, but depending on time, Public Works and our own staff, it will differ. So we don't have a total price, but we're comfortable that we'll be within the budget.
Okay, that's fair.
Councillor Fisher?
I was just wondering what, I know you have to work with staff and to prep, you mentioned a road and some prep work. Do you have to indicate to the successful bidder as to when, are we looking at this fall, or are we looking into the spring, or?
We're open to start as soon as
As soon
we
as
can.
possible, okay.
Deputy Mayor Tanner?
There's a number of service agreements related with the existing tower with other fire departments, I believe. Have we locked in those agreements going forward with the new tower?
We have not.
Does that need to come to council if it's an agreement?
will.
Yeah, before equipment's mounted? Okay, just double checking.
Any further questions? Someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Fisher, please, thank you.
Yes. Move that town council for the town of Bridgewater endorse the recommendation of staff and award RFP 2020-09 Communications Tower to RFP 2020-09 to tourist contractors to supply and install one 110-foot galvanized all-welded self-supporting tower, provisional item number 3, along with provisional item number 6, the removal of the existing tower as proposed in their RFP submission for a total price of $98,325 full HST and $89,164.53 net HST.
Thank you. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Tanner. Further discussion?
Question.
Question being called. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, Mr. Hopkins. Down to business arising and unfinished business. We have the proposed Open Smart City, Open Smart Community pilot policy. So this is, I see Mr. DeVried is walking down. So this will be regarding the information management system with smart cities and our Energized Bridgewater plan. This would be a good time to have like a commercial break. We should have some sponsors. We could generate some revenue, put that into the skate park. It was great to hear that there was some $3,000 worth of donations to the skate park. That was great. All right, Leon, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I have a brief presentation here for you on this policy to help you understand what's in it and just give the highlights. I'm just looking for action. So this policy originates from staff and is tied to the Energize Bridgewater program. And there we go. I'll point at you. The policy is really needed to move the Energize Bridgewater program forward, because what it does is it creates a policy framework on how the town intends to approach smart cities initiatives. Seems a little bit like putting, we put the cart before the horse to first start with the Smart Cities Initiative and then afterward come up with a policy for it. But it really is an important piece of scaffolding for that work, and it is expected by the project's funders. There's a number of benefits, including that it sets the town's approach to smart cities technologies based on what's called an open set of open principles and best practices, and I'll say more about that in a second. It also directs staff to take action on topics including accountability, privacy, data management, information security, and procurement. And as you can imagine, it took us a little bit of time to get that together and really understand what we were doing with the program. And further, it lays out a pathway for further policy development that's also necessary for this work. Other benefits include that it will help the town avoid common pitfalls that exist around smart cities initiatives in Canada that we've seen, including a lack of transparency, technology lock-in, inadequate privacy protection, and so on. And it provides a guide for addressing potential future uses of smart cities technologies in town operations. So it really tries to cover a lot of ground with a single policy. What does open really mean? So the name of the policy has the word open in it, and what that basically means is that it's based around a set of principles and practices that ensure that smart cities technologies are safely and appropriately deployed, and that privacy rights and security always come before technology. So we're putting people before the technology and people's privacy. There are a number of principles that the policy articulates, including values around accountable governance, privacy and control, participatory, inclusive, and responsive practices, and interoperability and transparency, and those are defined in the document. What I particularly find helpful is that we've been working with Open North, a national organization with real expertise in this area, and they've provided us with a lot of these definitions and terms, and we found it very helpful to work with them to develop this policy. In a nutshell, I'll just give you a couple of small points on what moving toward open practices really means as a municipality. A question that may arise is, does this mean that all of our confidential data will now be publicly visible? No, not at all. That is not going to happen. That's not what open means. What open means is that confidential, personal, and critical data will actually be considered protected and must be maintained in highly secure IT systems. What we will be doing is that we will be doing more deliberate about classifying the types of protected information we maintain and clarifying why it needs to be protected. So moving from everything is closed to things are open, but we're very deliberate about what we're protecting. The second point, does this mean that we have to stop collecting personal information? Maybe. What it means is that we need to become, again, more deliberate as an organization in understanding what kinds of personal data we collect, why we collect it, and how we store it securely. It means that we commit to collecting the minimum data necessary to provide quality services, and this contributes to public trust in stewarding our community's data. And lastly, does this mean that our data is currently unsafe somehow? And the answer is also a resounding no. We already have robust data security systems in place. Those are being monitored and improved continuously. This is about creating a long-term agenda to intentionally improve data governance, privacy protection, and information security in line with best practices. It's about setting ourselves up so we avoid potential problems down the road. Should council choose to approve the pilot policy, we will have, within a 2-year time frame, a number of things that will be very helpful in moving these initiatives forward. One is a data governance committee that will guide further policy development in this area. We will have clarity on the role and oversight responsibilities on the part of the CAO as the town's chief security officer and chief privacy officer. We will have increased clarity on the types of data that the town collects, as well as the data protection measures that it has in place. We will have a privacy policy and an open data policy fully developed and implemented. We will have information security protocols and practices that will be in line with best practices. We will have procurement practices improved, that will be improved to support best practices in data protection for external contractors. And the Energize Bridgewater funding requirements will be met. And these are related to data governance and management. As I said, our funders do expect us to put some of these measures in place. And then finally, we will, Town Council will receive an evaluation of this policy to help Council decide whether to continue the policy or somehow change or remove it after 2 years. And lastly, the recommendation, therefore, from staff to Council is that Council approve the Open Smart Community pilot policy, that Council direct staff to evaluate the pilot implementation of that policy and bring forward recommendations related to its potential expansion, modification, or annulment by August 31st, 2022, and that Town Council appoint the CAO as the town's chief security officer. And I'm happy to respond to any questions you may have.
Thank you, Leon. Questions from members of council on that? It all seems to be the next logical step in going forward, ensuring our data is safe and secure, yet open and transparent. Oh. Is someone prepared to make a motion? Deputy Mayor Tanner.
I move that Town Council for the Town of Bridgewater approve the Open Smart Community Pilot Policy as presented in document 20-150 as policy 103 for the town, effective immediately.
Do you just need anything to add on to that to appoint the CAO?
The policy does that.
The policy does it? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Seconded by Councilor Thorburn. Any further discussion?
Question?
Question being called. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. There'll be regular updates, council, on this, Mr. DeVried?
There will be updates as part of the Energize Bridgewater program, but the idea really is that the Data Governance Committee will really be moving this work forward, and so that committee may refer things to council through the CAO's office.
So as we see open data and its benefits, I'm going to say, going forward, is there going to be, I'm going to actually ask the CAO this, so will there be the ability to kind of look at that and say, well, this might work in this department, or if we did it this way? It's a weird ask, maybe you can't answer. Where I'm going with this is, at the FCM a couple of years ago, Fredericton talked about how they put some of their wastewater data as open source. When an engineer who happened to be at home just surfing the net went onto their website, saw their data, and with his engineering hat on, came up with a number of various changes that saved them millions of dollars just by rerouting their wastewater. So I'm wondering if this is something that, and maybe they're completely different, maybe it's just different data and we're looking at it differently, but do you think this is something that,
Could be expanded?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the intent of the policy, is that we would start with looking at our smart, or our energized Bridgewater data, but that it can be extended to include data, any data that we have that could be shared.
awesome, okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, if I could make a small correction. Tammy, I don't believe the policy specifically appoints the CAO. It mentions.
I was reading the last section there, yeah. But you might be right.
Could someone move the appointment of the CAO as the town's chief security officer, please? Deputy Mayor Tanner, seconded by Councilor Thorburn. Any discussion?
Question.
Question being called. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. You're it now.
Okay.
Tag, you're it. I see you're trying to get out of it. That's really what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She wanted out.
Item 11.2, revision to policy 89, fees. And I see our Director of Community Development is here. I almost said planning, but see, I'm getting better.
Yes, so this is, in March, we brought forward, there was a suite of additional fees that were brought forward and amended under the fees policy. And one that we changed a number of our fees related to planning applications. And one thing that we did not think of and catch at that point in time was when we have a concurrent application for an MPS or LUB amendment, so an amendment to our municipal planning strategy or land use bylaw concurrent with the development agreement. So under the way our fees worked prior to April 1st of this year, the fees were an admin fee plus an advertising deposit, and the fees were changed to be a flat rate fee. So we're proposing a blended fee that would be, instead of, so now it's $1,200 to do an amendment or a development agreement. So rather than a blend, if you do both applications concurrently, you have to pay $2,400. So we're suggesting to create a blended fee that would reduce it by $700, which was the former advertising deposit.
Right. I'm glad you explained it that way, because I just thought, a new planning fee makes it sound like additional planning fee, but it's not.
No.
It's a reduction by making it a little more, like blending it,
Whereas
so.
before, we had it, because it was an advertising
Right.
deposit, we were advertising for both at the same time. So there was a cost effectiveness in doing that,
Right.
and a refund was almost always given in that instance. So this is just looking back historically, it just makes sense to create a blended fee.
Perfect. Thank you. Any questions on that? Someone prepared to make a motion, please? Councilor Frazier?
Yes, I'll make a motion that Town Council for the Town of Bridgewater approve the revised fees policy as presented in document 20-151 as policy 89 for the town, effective immediately.
Thank you. Seconded by Councilor Graves. Pretty straightforward. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. We already dealt with the tennis club, so our last item is co-application to FCM with Clean Foundation for PACE Program Improvement Round 2, which is, we're going to hear a recommendation from staff here.
Well, it's simply that this, at the time that we came forward earlier this year with a recommendation that we make applications to both, details of this second round were not yet made available, so we assumed it would be relevant. Upon publication of the details of this funding, they are not relevant to our work, so we're just wanting to let you know that we should not be making an application because we would not be successful.
Right. Deputy Mayor?
So Jessica, just out of curiosity, how doesn't it align?
That is a very good question that I cannot answer off the top of my head
Okay.
here. But it's, we thought, I'm going to leave it to you. I will respond with more information.
The amount of funding was a lot lower too, so it was $175,000. And in terms of the amount that would be funded, where we were looking at a significantly larger number. If you remember, it was looking at funds to help facilitate participation in the
Correct.
PACE
So
program.
it's for our PACE program and
Yeah.
for, in considering Energize Bridgewater. So we were looking for much larger dollars than that amount. Also, the funding application that we did in the first round, that was for millions of dollars
Yeah.
to fund our deep energy retrofits under Energize Bridgewater. And this, I don't have the details off the top of my head.
No.
I apologize.
But isn't something better than nothing? No? Not in this case.
As long as you can do the intended work with the amount of funds, right?
I
So,
understood.
yeah.
Okay, I got it now. Okay.
Staff assessed that it wasn't worth the effort when there's other opportunities that
Yeah.
we're seeking that would
Okay.
be of greater benefit to the program overall.
Gotcha. Okay. No, fair question, though. Any other questions on that? So there's really no action on that one. All right, thank you. And under new business, we've already dealt with the Bridgewater Anti-Racism Task Force. And again, I want to thank council for its, that's a, pardon me, I want to say it's not a bold first step because it's a logical first step. But I would argue that in many places it is a bold step. So thank you for that. And there's no other further business. We have an in-camera item to deal with staffing matter after. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Councilor Thorburn, seconded by Councilor Frazier. We are adjourned. Thank you.